Greetings, welcome back, and happy Thursday, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, here with Kyle Fergusson. We're back at our normal time, on our normal day, in our normal states of residence.
We messed up. We did it too early, damn it.
No, we didn't. We did not mess up, Kyle. Kyle, we did a recording as late as we possibly could.
It was an hour after it that they announced Anduin.
When it actually posted, I believe it was about 10 minutes after the episode went live.
Yeah.
So it was about as shitty as it could have gotten.
There's also a BlizzCon announcement while we were gone.
Yeah, there was that. There was that as well. But as far as Heroes of the Storm is concerned, I mean, a new hero hitting the game, hitting the PTR and then hitting the game is, I would argue, bigger news than BlizzCon because we don't know. We don't know what the hell BlizzCon's going to be like for Heroes of the Storm. Yeah. Did you hear the best news? The best news about BlizzCon?
They're not spoiling things at Gamescom?
Ooh, that is. I didn't think about that. Because everyone's like, oh, controversy. Oh, Blizzard's tightening the belt. They're not spending money to go to BlizzCon. But you're right. A lot of times, what we would consider really big reveals for BlizzCon were revealed at Gamescom, and then we'd show up at BlizzCon and we're like, yeah, we already know about all this.
Yeah.
So that's...
Plus, I mean, we should have had Deckard at BlizzCon so that he was in the background, like just zipping by while they spun the camera around Orphea for a hot second. And like as it would go by, it'd be like, "Arr!" Of him doing his groan, and like a potion just kind of flies up from somewhere.
No,
could it worked it in?
I was going to say that the best news about BlizzCon is that Overwatch has been ousted from the arena, and the king of eSports has returned to its rightful place. StarCraft 2 is going back to the arena, Kyle.
That's fantastic. That's great news because it should be.
If you had told me that, I would have called you a liar. I would have been like, this is the first BlizzCon without Mike Morhaime. StarCraft will never be back in the arena.
It's the formalization of esports. No, StarCraft is, tooting that horn, still one of the best esports in the darn world, and deserves to have a center stage because it is having quite the resurgence. It is alive and well. And I think if you're going to do particularly not even the end of your tournament at BlizzCon, you need to make way for the Kings.
I'm pleased as punch, man. And think it's going to be where I spend a lot of my time when I'm not demoing or doing interviews or something.
Yeah, well, there's also likely going to be some Warcraft 3-age, some sort of invitational.
True. That's true. And there's also Mythic Dungeons now, which I legitimately love.
They're
legitimately enjoyable. Love the Mythic Dungeon esports because it's how I have always played World of Warcraft. I've dabbled in PvP, but even then, I maybe spent 1 year of my long history of playing World of Warcraft getting into the arena. So, arena never did it for me.
It's a messy, weird, you're looking the wrong direction, can't cast. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to the camera. I think a lot of it suffers from the same issues as Overwatch. It's just kind of hard to watch and tell what's going on, whereas the Mythic Dungeon invitationals are shot how you play the game. No one's constantly spinning. The camera works as intended, and it's very readable.
Well, they do have a spectator cam, but they do a good job with it. And at the end of the day, like if you aren't familiar with the game, that at the very least you're like, oh, I can tell when one team dies and another team doesn't, and the timer adjusts. Like it's very easy to read the base level competition going on in that way. But yeah, man.
I think that's the thing. A lot of us have PvE experience. The tension of PvP feels a little double support heroes. You're not really sure who's connected right now, what spells going off, what got dispelled, what got cleansed. And having that solo tank, 3 back, line, 1 support gives us something really solid in esports way to view. And obviously, we're singing the praises of other events that are going to be there. We don't know what's going to happen with heroes. It would be extremely odd for them to just ignore any sort of thing, particularly when Hearthstone, maybe it's a little competitive, but Hearthstone feels a little awkward off in its distant hut, to its audience of 5. And
the distant Hearthstone hut.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have a very large audience last year. But it's the challenge of the conference, right? It's gotten so big that there's... What are you going to do, knock out a wall and extend the convention center out into the street?
They kind of have with the food trucks and all that.
That's very true. Actually, you know what? They have done that, Kyle. You're right. Sometimes they have like DJs out there and after parties. They've done everything that they can. So anyways, it's happening. We'll talk a little bit more about it later in the show. Let's get to this week's news.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Point me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
So the big news is, of course, Anduin is here in the game, in the live game, because we recorded so early we didn't even have a chance to talk about Anduin hitting the PTR. So this will be our first time talking about Anduin together. I'm sure you had some words about what did I call him? I called him Prince Boy Kingface.
That's a good name for him.
Yeah. Or I guess Priest Boy Kingface. Priest Boy Kingface. That makes more sense because he's not a prince anymore if he's king.
He's a handsome feller. He's in there doing his light business. Got a little bit of blue to it too, a little Azerite, but for the Alliance and whatnot.
Yeah, so he's here. He's a support, and he's kind of Uthery.
A bit. He definitely reminds me of Imperius in that we have reached the level of heroes that are not designed for a counter-based draft esports environment. This is a little bit of everybody. You're going to sense a little bit of Alex Straza in there. You're going to feel a little bit of even White Mane. It's just going to combo together, and it's another support. But in that way, because we have entered a declare your allegiance to your role, healers really like him. And that's really what matters. The healers I have talked to, the healers I have played with, are all just really happy to have another option that is pretty damn solid.
Yeah, man. It to me, like, I didn't think about Imperius, but I get that. If someone was like, "What is Anduin like?" I'm like, Uther with delay. Like that's kind of how he feels, because there's a delay to kind of everything he does, even though his W and his E do fire out instantly. Thinking about it's his W that returns, right? And on the return it has a heal.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I as a support am mostly thinking about the heal and less about the damage, so I still go, yeah, it fires instantly, but the heal is still delayed.
He is, to just jump the gun here, extremely low damage.
Oh, totally. 100%.
Like 10,000 is where most Anduins end their games right now. And even for Morales, they put a lot of heft in those grenades over time. Anduin doesn't really have that. Chastise, his E, his CC he brings to the party is a root, and it's a little slow. And it flies out, and it's pretty likely to get its target. It gets pretty wide, hitting the first hero it comes in contact with, but the damage on it isn't great. And his auto attacks, while they are at the 5.5 range, are, Kael'thas, wizard size. He's not getting in there with a Stukov arm, and you're going to end this with very little splash damage done. That's going to pad out that number in any way.
Yeah, but I think that's okay. He feels weirdly old school, and I like that about him a lot. And I may have said this about Imperius back in the day, because Imperius honestly feels pretty old school as well. And I dig it. I like that he's this low damage support, because his kit is so empowering to your team.
Fun thing about it is everyone's like, oh, this feels like World of Warcraft. What a great job they did on the design. You mean it's clunky and you get stuck wherever you're casting? But yeah, that's the essence of that feeling of Warcraft, and it totally works.
Yeah, but it allows them to tune it, right? Because he's got a good heal. It heals for a decent amount, but it doesn't cost a ton. But it takes 3/4 of a second for it to actually fire off and hit the target. And then it's only 40 seconds before you hit it again. The starting healing on this is 260, which is on the smaller side, but it's no slouch. And you can cast a lot of these because of how mana efficient it is. I like that a lot. To me, I look at all of these delays as part of the balancing act of this hero, because
Right.
If he doesn't do well enough or he starts doing too well, that 3/4 of a second on his flash heal, that can become quicker or even longer to rein him in, as opposed to just going for raw numbers.
And that's what gives him this awful retreat, really, in his kit. If you are going to be healing people as you go, the 9-second cooldown on Divine Star that you shoot out, hit damaging enemies, coming back to you, and healing in a very wide path, really forgiving, well designed, I feel, because it not only increases in the width as it returns, increasing the healing by 25% per enemy hero hit, it also sort of flies past you a little bit and envelops you. So that Chromie, who's, you know, a little bit on your 8 o'clock there, she gets healed too. You're not having to perfectly drag this thing.
I like this with poke comps a lot because it has the natural poke dance to it. Like if your whole team is kind of, you know, doing the damage, moving backwards as they take damage, then re-engaging, this just works with that type of gameplay.
I agree. You got the really solid root. If you can keep the damage by you, Anduin is decently threatening because of that root. And he's not a slouch in terms of health. He's all right resilience. You can cast your Q on yourself, no problem. Of course, you have that cast time. So something like a Muradin doing Skullcracker mini stuns might be a pretty big issue for you.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think I would argue it depends more on your comp than the opposing comp. Because the Muradin would be annoying, but as long as your team is not going to abandon you on the Anduin, you should be okay.
And even then, you got your trait, which, you know, in obvious cases is a save. That would be the Leap of Faith.
This is the coolest thing on his kit, in my opinion.
It's a great reference. There's lots of great priest reference throughout his kit. I mean, just to do the list, you got a Renew Talent, Inner Fire, Binding Heal, Power Word Shield, Inner Focus, Lightwell, Holy Nova. They really, as someone who plays a lot of priest, it just really caught me with those references, that fantasy. And Leap of Faith is one of the most clutch things you can do in World of Warcraft as a priest. It often is completely useless. If nothing else, just flashy. Yeah, that person would have taken a little bit of damage. Maybe you're in Mythic something or other and you totally saved a bun. Sometimes it happens. For the most part, you're saying, get over here already. Oh, hey, I'm doing the quest. Come, friend. Like here, with Unstoppable tied to it on an 80-second cooldown, it is clutch.
Oh, yeah. This is such a counter to the any if the opposing team has any sort of like dive or they're just particularly good at body blocking, good God, this really throws a monkey wrench into their plan. And I'm saying this as an Uberak fan. Like one of my favorite things to do is just dive in and get on the opposite side of the target, and they can't get past. And thinking about mercenary stealing heavy maps where you get into those merc fights a lot, and a lot of times what happens? One of you gets surrounded, and that's how you die.
There's a lot of situations that are recovered from because of this, which is on the negative side of things. And Tyrael went too far out because he gets excited. Tyraels get excited, they want to absorb everything. They think they have shields for days, and they end up getting completely locked down. They're not clicking their sword. So you make them unstoppable, drag them to you, get them out of the poop, and no harm done. You got a Garrosh counter there. One of your allies gets thrown. No, they don't. Whoop. A Stitches hook. Whoop. Bring them on back. Those are all mistakes that you're helping to recover. My wittiest games with Anduin, I've been using the Leap of Faith in a more proactive way to say, yeah, Thrall, nice job on that Diablo, but I've got Sammy on me. Get over here and protect me. Or, Gleeman, you're on the wrong side of that wall, Cursed Hollow. Let's get you with the rest of the team so I can top you off actively. But also you're firing through the proper channel.
The breakthrough I had with it was that it added an extra layer of security, of feeling of security. I was playing on, I think it was Towers of Doom, as Rexar. And granted, things were going well because of what I'm about to explain to you, but I started flanking a lot more. Because we took one fight where we invaded their bottom sapper camp on Towers of Doom. So we go in there, we have a fight. The fight goes well. We win the camp. I continue engaging through the forward exit, like pushing towards their gate into their core, right? And it's going pretty well, and then eventually reses happen, and suddenly I'm kind of caught out up in that upper portion where that sapper camp is. And I think to myself, well, I'm dead. That's it. That's the end of this. And Anduin just, leap of faith, pulls me over the wall, and we're good. And for the rest of the game, I was like, cool, I am safe to flank. And it worked. And I was a lot braver than I normally would be. Took a lot more aggressive kind of flanking positions than I normally would. And just having that in the back of my head was, like I said, it gave me this extra layer of security, which equaled a new amount of bravery to utilize.
Yeah, and that's a great way to use it defensively, but you're using it as that safety net. You're getting more aggressive because you know in the background you have this ability. I think the immediate thought of so many people was, oh man, what an awesome thing for dive characters on my team. How awesome for Butcher. How awesome for Illidan. The problem with those two in particular is that you disconnect them, meaning everything went completely wrong. There was no value in what the Butcher Illidan just did. And now they're not recovering cooldowns on Illidan, and they're not self-healing or doing any damage in the first place on Butcher.
Right. It's certainly nice to have in those scenarios when it goes bad, but this is what we talk about, drafting to lose. You're drafting,
right.
If you're taking Anduin just a leap of faith, the Butcher or the Illidan when things go wrong, you're drafting that pick because you're assuming things won't go right.
The only one I've heard that I really like is Artanis. Artanis does a really long-range swap. Embedded in the enemy team, you bring him back to you while still getting that kill.
Well, that's just a two-player combo that's beautiful and amazing, and I want to do it.
Yeah. No one's really making mistakes. You know, it was even pre-planned as much as you can pre-plan a warp prism.
Right, it's a wombo. But it's fine. Like that's the Artanis, the only thing lost is the Artanis, right? Like if he misses, it's fine. And if he hits, rad. Now you leap of faith the Artanis.
Right, and if he misses completely, very rarely does Artanis take 3/4 of his health and damage, whereas that Illidan and that Butcher is now taking on a 4-second cooldown. If you don't talent into a cooldown increase at level 1, you're looking at multiple casts, 30 seconds at least, trying to top off those characters.
Yeah, but we haven't talked about his heroics yet. So there's two options.
Strong opinions.
I have strong opinions as well. So there's Holy Word Salvation, which is after a short delay, I believe it's half a second, you channel for 3 seconds. And in a rather large area around Anduin for those 3 seconds, allied heroes heal for up to 25% of their maximum health and are protected for the entire 3 seconds. Tyrael would like a word.
Tyrael does have invulnerability with it, and it's smaller. I do feel like people were playing Anduin, and then they lost Anduin in draft and went, well, I love bright things, so I'm going to go Tyrael. I saw a lot of Tyrael this week, and I think it's in people's heads for this exact reason. However, they often ended up fighting Anduin. I'm going to go Judgment and do the charge, and I think we lost that kind of base jump we were doing in the first place. Either you're protected. You are protected, but much like Varian before him, protection does not mean you are immune to CC.
Right. But you are immune to damage for 3 seconds, which is a long time in this game. So the CC...
And you're healing behind it.
Yes, up to 25%. And this is not a small area. This is a very large radius. 25% is a huge heal. It's not going to be hard to have multiple teammates in the salvation for the entire 3 second duration. It's that big.
Of course. Yeah, there's going to be some juggling, as you would expect with a good ability like this. You're versus Thrall. He has Sundering. No, you cast. Well, I'll cast. No, you cast. No, you cast. And then Thrall goes, fine, I see an opportunity. I don't Tracer. And goes, wah, and slams. And Anduin's like, boing, aha, you messed up. You used your CC before I could. It's like the ETC old problem, right? You get in some juggling wars against a good opponent with this. But that's fine. That's counterplay. You'll want to bring multiple stuns in order to interrupt this thing. The power of it is the protection, and then incidentally it has an amazing heal. And when I say amazing, you're looking at the difference between ending the game at 80,000 and 120,000. In all honesty, everyone is going to be way more on board come the late half of the game, even if you lose, looking at the numbers and saying, damn, Anduin, nice heals, didn't get out healed by Brightwing, all right, good job. You end up going Light Bomb, That's shielding. And you're not going to give any healing, and you're going to look bad, frankly.
Okay, dude, could you go further, I think, to bury any credibility to both of us, I think, wanting to crap on Light Bomb? Because if you're leading in the Light Bomb with, you shouldn't take it because you look bad in numbers. Like, you shouldn't care about numbers. Like, if you're winning, you're winning.
Yeah. Are you winning with Light Bomb, though?
No, you're not. Don't take Light Bomb. It's Salvation. Yeah, it's
Okay, let's get through Light Bomb. Hold your emails. Let's get through Light Bomb.
Yeah. All right. So what Light Bomb does is you pick a hero, you click on them, they get imbued with the light, and after 1.5 seconds, that hero explodes, and it deals 150 damage to enemies in the radius of this explosion and stuns them for 1.25 seconds. Also, the target of your Light Bomb, your friendly target, gains a shield that absorbs 140 damage per enemy hero hit. It lasts for 5 seconds. And it is on a significantly shorter cooldown than Salvation. Salvation's on an 80-second cooldown. Light Bomb's on a minute. It's just, however, I don't understand why anyone likes this talent. I don't get it.
On paper here, it looks like you're turning someone into an instant Uther with Divine Storm. And that is a sexy thought. It's just, it's so easy to forget that Uther is probably sporting his own armor. He's got his self-heal going. He's got another stun on the back of it, too. So normally you go pwing, and then you stun Genji a second time, making Genji really have a bad time in there. All those things get in your head. But what you end up making isn't a circle on top of a circle. What you end up making is a Venn diagram, and it's bad. So Butcher was the very first thing that everyone got excited. Oh, I want to see Light Bomb. Butcher. It'll be invincible. It'll be amazing. Butcher runs and comes in contact frontal with his target, which means this circle is now just covering the target he has now hit, making a tiny little Venn diagram of stunnage. What you actually want, and what I'm actually curious to see in the future, is a Nubarak diving into the full team, embedding himself fully. Everybody's in the circle. Big shield. I tried this on an Illidan last night. It didn't go well, but the idea of him jumping over the top of the target is a little more connected. Maybe Chen, right? There is an option for this. Chen's probably even better than Illidan in that way. What you want is a lot of self-regeneration to even run Light Bomb, because you're missing out on that huge amount of healing. Not only the healing, the protection that just caught that Leeming orb that didn't even put you at the lower health in the first place. So there's a place for this, and I want to see it happen, but I would really caution against Light Bomb for now.
I don't see a place for it. Every time I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, maybe in high coordinated games, like where you're talking, you got all your buddies on comms and you're talking, but then I'm like, oh no, I'd rather just tell them that the Salvation is coming than we pull off just a sick team fight.
And that's the issue. It's also just hard to use. That's a really, intensely timed out thing, 1.5 seconds. It doesn't have a ton of lead up. There needs to be instant communication, understanding of what's going to happen, making it kind of hard to do with the Butcher because of lead in time.
Yeah.
Salvation, I've seen, my silver friends catch pyroblasts for allies. We all ended up last night in my 5-stack games, inside of an entomb. And so, Salvation crying at the sky, and we're all just incredible in there and fight our way back out of an entomb. It was great. It's such a clean panic button.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not feeling the Light Bomb at all at the moment,
which is frightening, frankly, because they could come for Salvation, which would be sad because it feels like a big part of why you take Anduin right now, or they buff Light Bomb, and we've seen what they've done to some of these heroics that are underpicked, and they get a little wild, and Light Bomb could get really interesting and scary.
Yeah, it could. But it feels undertuned at the moment. And also, like, historically, I have not liked taking talents that depend on people that aren't me to do something with them. Like,
and that was my first reaction too, was, I can't coordinate this in a solo game with my allies. Well, I'll treat it like Uther. I'll do it. And so I cast Light Bomb on myself and went running, and there is Anduin, and you know what? You don't make it far Without that Armor of Uther, the prolonged self-heal, there's just death awaiting you in a self-light bomb. And the stun isn't long enough for you to really escape with it on the back end.
Yeah. All right. Also, sorry, everybody. Kyle and I have the same opinion.
Yeah, and we like to battle here from time to time, but
yeah, I'm not going to fight you on this one. I'm all about Salvation. I had some just incredible games where the Anduin went Salvation, and I've lost every game where the Anduin went Light Bomb. I've yet to win a game with Light Bomb taken.
Me too.
But yeah, so anecdotal, but we don't have stats to go off of. But yeah. Other than that, though, I really like Anduin. Overall,
yeah,
I think he's a good healer added to the game. Kind of what I was hoping for. Like, I feel like we have enough team fighty, and by that I mean producing damage, adding damage to the fight healers already in the game. I really liked when they added Deckard, and he was not this damage forward healer, and I'm glad that we're doing the same thing here with Anduin. I didn't want another battle healer.
The interesting thing about Deckard is that we all have started speccing him into a way that deals more damage using his scroll. So we've made Deckard into a battle healer. Anduin just really doesn't have that option, but is forced to do it by nature of his level 1 talent, which is a choice. But as of the stats we have right now, 87% of people at level 1 are picking bold strategy, which is causing you to get both of the other 2 talents at level 1, which is a new system. You choose between Renew, which basic attacks empower your next flash heal to cause a heal over time, or Pursuit of Grace, damaging enemy hero heals the lowest allied hero near you for an amount. Taking Bold Strategy gives you both those talents, but you increase the cooldown of flash heal by 1 second. Obviously, people want both, and the 1 second isn't hurting nobody now that in a time that we're not optimized.
It's interesting because his auto attack is so bad that I'm not as tempted by Pursued by Grace, I guess. But I guess it doesn't matter. Like, it's not affecting the damage it's producing. Does not affect the heal. It's just landing the attack is all that matters. But
right, and that's something you can do a bit more at your whimsy. But the area is rather small. I mean, you're looking at maybe like a Butcher furnace blast kind of size around you, smaller than a blizzard sitting on top. You need to be rather close to your allies to even be putting out these heals, whereas Renew, you land an auto attack, that thing's empowered, glowing for you, and you're going to put a heal over time whoever you heal next, no matter what that range is, as long as you connect, which is pretty darn solid. I'm curious to see if Bold Strategy will have a cooldown increase. So right now it increases that flash heal cooldown from 4 seconds to 5 seconds, which you feel in a fight. You feel like you're moving pretty slow. Will they take that to 2 seconds to move people off of this? It seems like a really good deal. And there are a few times with Anduin you're going to go, that team has too many blinds. I can't do auto attack build.
Yeah. Is it as common now, though, for that to be a draft strategy?
Nah, not really, with them, unless you're really leading with that Illidan or that Butcher, but even then.
Yeah, I feel like Lily has fallen off a decent amount. And
yeah, well, in Cassia, it's like a quick match bizarro magic pick sometimes, and then other times it's just awful. So it is weird that, Johanna seems to be having a comeback. We see this every season. Side note, but start of the season, just Johanna's awful, very low impact. Do what I'm doing, but let me not tell you who to hit. And then mid-season pops in and everyone goes, Johanna, solid tank. Let me follow you up. And then the end of the season hits and everyone's placing again and it goes down. So it's Johanna time, everybody. But that doesn't mean we're doing it for blinds.
It's Johanna season.
Johanna's back in season again.
It's good to know. Lightwell just feels great as a talent. Level 16 talent, Lightwell. It's totem-esque, but smaller area, and it's not percent based. But man, I stepped on one of these things the first time, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm feeling alive and ready to fight again."
It feels good. Yeah. The nice thing about Lightwell is that it has a 70-second cooldown, but the cooldown is reduced by 1 second each time Anduin heals an allied hero, including yourself.
Yeah, Anduin,
So-
not the Lightwell. So like if you don't need to be worried about like I can't put this down because people won't stand it and I won't get the cooldown reduction. This is based off of just you, Anduin, healing other heroes.
And with your level 1 talent doing some healing, there's this great talent level 7 called Blessed Recovery. If Anduin loses more than 8% of his maximum health at once, he recovers 15% health over 3 seconds. First of all, great priest reference from way back in the day. But this has a 10-second cooldown. This is an Asmodan counter. You get slammed by an Asmodan, or you're still full health, and you recover instantly. Plus, now you're healing over time. You just reduced your Lightwell cooldown. And, well, guess what? You're healing everybody over time. You're reducing that cooldown, more Lightwells. And it was a really nice Asmodan counter altogether.
Not that Asmodan needed a counter right now, but yeah.
But I've been saying for a while that the problem with Asmodan is the burden on supports. Now we have a support that really, really matches the type of damage that Asmodan deals, and it feels really, really good. Plus, you can sit on your cooldown, so you can put out a Lightwell, heal, and be amazing healing, and then be sitting on another Lightwell ready to cast it, though you can only have one at a time.
Which feels fair, because the healing output by these Lightwells are solid.
Now, if you want to get real fancy, and I'm talking real fancy, there is a Desperate Prayer build here, which is just plain silly. You basically are a machine gun Rhaegar. It's tough to do, and I'm really curious to see if it'll take the forefront. So Desperate Prayer, a level 20 talent, cooldown 40 seconds, desperately heal an ally for about, at that level here, it says this is the level 1 value of 540. It's something like 1,000 something. You kneel for 2 seconds, unable to act. Using Desperate Prayer, places Flash Heal on a 10-second cooldown. Oh, well, we just ruined our heal. No, wait a minute. Inner Focus at level 16 instantly resets the cooldown on Flash Heal. Dealing damage with Divine Star reduces the cooldown Inner Focus. So there's a pattern you can do that goes Flash Heal, Inner Focus, Flash Heal, Divine Star, Desperate Prayer. Okay, you're at 10 seconds now. Inner Focus, put that 10 down to 0. Flash Heal, now you're at 4 seconds. And you can do all those in one big long chain.
That's kind of gnarly.
It's kind of ridiculous to do, and it'd be in one of those situations at this point, at this skill level of Anduin, where someone is wailing really hard on Arthas and just won't stop. And you have one target, and you're just going to go bang, 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 like you're pally healing in a raid.
Yeah. Like, so have you tried this in games with real people?
I lost the game.
Okay. All right. It's just...
It is really complicated.
Wouldn't try it out, Jay. I was just curious at this point. Like this is the type of thing that is I would assume is pretty hard to keep straight when an actual fight is going on.
And with time, this could be, it doesn't matter who the target is. You can move this around a bunch. You could do one heal to you, one heal to you. And it's a cool system that's in the talents for you to use. Whether or not you will pull it off is another issue.
Fair. Awesome. Well, any other comments on Anduin before we move to a rather sizable update to multiple battlegrounds?
Love the references in him. It's great to have Anduin in the game. I'm happy for the support players who are enjoying him and getting to have just another flavor, just another vanilla. You know, we all like, you put some chocolate, you got Rocky Road, that's all vanilla, and it's great. And it's great to have additional options. There is, one there are a couple issues with Anduin, and his animations are a little stiff. His portrait is a bit flappy in the Warcraft 3 sense, in that it doesn't have any lip sync. He just sort of mumbles along with whatever's going on, and there's no lip sync animations in the store or in the queue. So it appears that maybe he was a little rushed, maybe a little underworked on. I think the only one that bothers me is the stiffness of his sword that he takes out to do Divine Star, and then kind of like he's hitting all 3 stages in between, and then they sort of smoothed it out on the end.
I hadn't picked up on that, but now I will probably not be able to unsee it. Thank you, Kyle, for ruining it.
I apologize.
I'm
just hoping those get cleaned up, because otherwise, great, awesome.
I like that his first red skin, because he has 2 different red tints. The first one looks like a weird mix between both Menkskis.
Yeah.
His hair color is that of Arcturus Mengsk, but his outfit looks a lot like Valerian Mengsk.
I mean, both those characters happened at about the same time. The Anduin getting older suddenly, and the Prince Minx. I'd be very curious to just give him that. I don't think there's any, like, maybe add some Terran noises or something, but he could totally pull it off.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I don't know how you would... like, if you gave him a full-on Valerian Mengsk skin, I don't know how you StarCraftify his abilities. I mean, you could do it, right? Have like a green healing beam for his heal, and salvation is like he channels some type of beacon. I don't know.
Right, like a little drone thing, and
yeah, we'll figure it out. There, we've workshopped it. There, Valerian Mengsk skin. Please and thank you.
One more comment, and this is just because it really got me. Divine Star is completely faded out. It's white if it's an enemy one. So you'll see this sort of puff of wind come flying from the enemy team. And I thought there was a hidden mouthfeel somewhere in the map. Casting shade.
That's interesting. I guess I hadn't really noticed the effect. But yeah, that's a little subtle.
It is. And granted, the beam part of it that's dealing the damage, that's visible because it's dealing damage to you. But the return wave and even an enemy light well is just kind of ghosted out. But it's important. You should zone people out of a light well. You should ruin their good time with that thing.
Yeah.
And, maybe you want to displace Anduin so he doesn't sweep a heal over his whole team.
Yeah, I've always wanted to talk to somebody on the team about how they prioritize the visuals on any type of area effect, right? Because we have things like Phoenix, which is extremely obvious where the enemy's Phoenix radius is. Yet we look at the same hero, Kael'thas. You look at Living Bomb. No indication whatsoever about how large that explosion is going to be when it goes off. And then take it one step further, Kyle. You're talking about the return wave making you think of a Malthael and being a little confused. We still have that elemental skin for Thrall, and when he chain lightnings you, it looks like there's a Living Bomb on you. And that has been in the game since Thrall hit the game.
There's also now a level 20 talent on Anduin called Varian's Legacy, where basic attacks burn enemies, which is a flame sitting on you, crispin. Granted, it doesn't have the sound effect, and by level 20, you should have learned if there's a Kael'thas or not in your game.
No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I still, every now and then, it's like, it could be minute 15, and I still go, whoa, is that a Living Bomb? Wait, no, they don't have a Kael'thas. Okay, moving on. I just don't need the panic. I don't need that half second of brain gymnastics.
I will say, as someone who's primarily playing Kael'thas right now in my draft games, I have become horrible at bombs because I'm just not used to playing against them. I'm the guy with them.
Yeah.
Losing that edge.
Yeah, I'm still having to work on my not spreading the bombs with the bear.
Yeah.
It's annoying, man. A lot of times I'm just like, whatever, I guess Misha dies because I don't want to spread the bomb.
We purposely put it on the bear and a Nubarak, beetles, and whatever else you've summoned, just to make sure no one can hang out by it.
Well, the beetles keep walking forward. The bear typically goes back to the team.
Yeah, stuns on back and carries it right on through.
Yep. Yeah, it's rough. But that's what I've been trying to get a little better at. But it's all right. Been playing StarCraft, getting better at it. But let's talk about this Battleground update because this is huge, man. Some of the changes that have been made to Battlegrounds in the game. First of all, Dragonshire just got a huge art update.
It's pretty.
Yeah. Also, I see you noted in here, and I thought the same thing. It looks wider, but apparently it isn't.
Yeah, from all the reports that we can see, the trees are more vertical, and they kind of have that, what reminds me instantly of Dota, a very crisp, almost like claymation sort of feel to it, where it has been made more timeless, if that is a thing. This is like, you put it in a capsule and you said, these graphics will never look bad. Unless our future sensibilities think they look bad, in which case we'll deal with future us. But for now, wow, well done. And I'm really curious, being a tile set that is very Warcraft 3, if this is the Warcraft 3 team sharing some assets.
Ooh, maybe. Well, is the Warcraft... I don't think the Warcraft 3 Reforged is using the StarCraft 2 engine, though, is it?
No, but you could use Warcraft 3 units in the StarCraft editor to make tower defense games and other sorts of
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
So there was a way to import those without too much trouble, apparently.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. But yeah, just a big kind of visual overhaul on Dragonshire. Just looks great.
Yeah, there's even like random useless things that we attribute to like 2016 Heroes of the Storm. Like they don't have time for these things. You're walking around, there's like runes, little rocks hidden in the trees, and they'll light up and sparkle as you walk by. It's like, oh, well, who did this? We have time for these sort of things? That's fabulous. There's also a great weather effect that happens when the dragon gets taken. Everything looks like it's on fire, like you're hanging out by a burning forest. And if you're top lane and for some reason her screaming about her husband being dead didn't wake you up to the fact the objective's been taken, there is now a full-blown flashing red flame effect that'll make you go, oh, maybe I should help push and or defend.
Still yelling about her dead husband.
It's a little weird. I mean, that's the weird part, right?
That's some baggage I don't need. I don't need that story in my PvP game.
We got the dragon update, which is great. I love the two-handed axe business, and I think it looks awesome. And this long after that, we get the rest of the map update. I'm just curious what happened in between there, and can we expect this across other maps? I'll say Braxis looking a little moldy. You know, it doesn't capture me. I would love to see this level of polish on Braxis.
You be nice to Braxis.
I'll be nice to Infernal Shrines. I won't be nice to the Frostwolf guard because it just bothers me. I'm all for voice acting, but he literally sounds like he stuck his fingers in his mouth to do orc tusks and said, "That's the voice. We're good."
All right, fair. But that wasn't the only thing. It wasn't just art updates on Dragonshire. Battlefield of Eternity, the gate near each team's Summoner Mercenary camp now has 2 towers on either side of it to prevent certain heroes, not outed by the devs, but certain heroes from being able to destroy them too easily.
It was Genji.
It was Genji.
Genji's model was small enough that he could hug the wall. So he would jump the wall and hug by the gate and could be in range with shurikens and all to take out the well without being targeted by the tower. And in perhaps the greatest overreaction of all time, Blizzard said, well, we're not going to move the tower. We're going to add 2 more towers to the wall. But that's frankly a joke. It's really good because I love that there is now a third lane that sits in the middle. Mainly, this means you now have 2 towers that you can participate with when you're fighting for someone perhaps stealing your summoner's camp there.
Yeah. Infernal Shrines, they're attempting to reduce Punisher RNG here. The dev comment said that they're trying to bring the 3 types of Punishers more closely aligned in power. So Mortar does more damage up front. Arcane had its damage reduced but maintains the high damage over a long period of time. And Frozen has had structured disables added to it.
There are also bigger explosions now that you might get caught in accidentally, so be prepared for that. But the number of explosions have been reduced from 6 to 5.
Right.
Pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. The Frozen, the freaking the disable on structures. It's something I don't know why we've never really mentioned it before. Like in all of our thinking of our what if conversations we like to have, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because I never really cared that much about the Frozen effect that comes out, especially if I was still fighting under a fort or keep.
Right, you get rooted, but you could keep participating. You could unstoppable in some form. The boss stun getting pushed into that, if we're talking Curse Hollow boss marching down the lane, you're dead. Sometimes the RNG of a tornado on Sky Temple coming by and pushing you into the wrong thing feels awful. This is just stealing the effect from the Sindragosa on Arthas. It is the same sort of icy claws that you're used to seeing. The big critique here is that Frozen Punisher is now really, really powerful in the early game, but as the game goes on and tanks become less concerned with the amount of damage that is being dealt by a keep, this effect is going to be on the lesser side of things, and you'll wish you had that Arcane Punisher again.
Well, it basically goes from being not that great all game to only being not that great late game.
Which is fair, because they're all A-okay in the late game, and Mortar Punisher damage is pretty good. Arcane has always had that issue as if the beam connects with a building and just buzzes through it for a whole half of its rotation, it's a huge amount of siege damage done.
Yeah, and it's also worth mentioning that the size of the frozen effect was increased by 0.25. Yes, they reduced the number of explosions, but increasing the size of the explosions, I think, because of the way we play the game and just the amount of times I've seen people just run out of the frozen zone, I think having a larger size is more effective in actually getting people caught in the effect than having just more of those areas.
So definitely dive with this thing. Get crazy alongside your frozen punishers for the future and pay attention to where those mortars are landing. You've always been scared of arcane punishers, so no change there, really.
Yeah, exactly. Volskaya, lots of Triglav changes. Also, the swap vehicle is gone now.
Right. So back in the day, when Triglav first came out, what they wanted to do was have the option, if you had to pilot solo because of strategy, how sweet, you could get in as a pilot and march it up to the wall and kung, get up there on the wall and then jump over to the gunner seat and start firing. Boo, boo, boo. And we found out that that was just the preferred way to do it all the time. And we'll just have one person pilot it, and then they'll jump over to the gunner and fire those, and those will go on cooldown, and then you'll jump back over to the pilot and reposition, and back and forth, and one player would do this business. And if you didn't know how to do it, it was a tradition, everyone got mad at you. So it was bad gameplay design.
This was
then what they
that
did,
though too. Wasn't that back when this damn thing was only good for team fights and horrible for sieging?
Yeah, that too.
So I mean, at the time, Volskaya was just weird because it felt like it wasn't that big of a deal to win the objective because the Triglav was so bad at siege.
Right, since it was bad at siege, if you got the first Triglav, you basically kind of dance around in the middle lane, not really going into tower range and just farting off if nobody came out to meet you. So then what they did was they went through.
They shouldn't have back then.
Right. So what they did was they said, okay, the damage on the whole thing is scaled based on if there's a pilot and a gunner. If you want to do any damage with this thing at all, you got to get a second person in there. So we said, okay, 2 people all times. Well, now, because we 2 people at all times, they're saying there's no reason for us to swap. And if you wanted to do that strategy in the first place where you swap back and forth, it wasn't even effective. So don't even bother. Button's gone.
Yep. And speaking of structure damage, the basic attack damage for the Triglav, 2 structures, they've increased the bonus damage by 50%.
Yeah, the charge where you charge up your fist and sort of jump forward into an impact area has had its non-heroic damage increased from 200% to 400%. So they really, really want you to get buildings. And you should be. What you should do with every first Triglav is go to the top lane and get rid of their well at the very least. Whatever order you get a Triglav in, if you get second one, you march that thing down to the bottom lane and get that well. You're always preparing for that next objective. If you're past the third objective, then you're trying to get keeps and such and walls down.
Right. It's the fantasy of what I always thought the Triglav should be. The pilot should be worried about sieging, and the gunner should be worried about defending the Triglav.
And to an extent, that's happening now. All the damage has basically been reduced, ramping up over time with this perspective that siege damage is just going to be better for the first place. So late game, Triglav, fine. Completely out of join team fights. It's great. It scales up and you'll feel like the old Triglav. The real big difference here is the Rocket Fist.
I love this change so much. It's kind of goofy and awesome and hilarious. So they increase the width, so it's just easier to land a Rocket Fist, but it no longer roots heroes. It knocks them back, as they put it here, equal to the full distance that the Rocket Fist would travel had it missed. So whatever the max range is on the Rocket Fist, I don't know what it is. I don't have it in front of me. But that's how far it pushes it. So think of it like a Stukov massive shove. That is now what you have on your Triglav Protector. And yeah, it's not as good for getting kills. Like before, you get the Rocket Fist, you've rooted a target, and they just died. You just dive on top of them with a Triglav and murder them.
Right. Not only is your damage reduced on that dive charge you would do to hero targets, you're no longer getting the sweet root that would cause this snowball to happen. So snowball prevention, really healthy. You're still making the choice if you want to dismiss somebody if you're up on a building or stun the building itself. And that's where we need to take a big old pause here and say, one of the biggest changes of this entire update is the priority of buildings. Vehicles are number one now in priority. Maybe it should have always been that way. You're marching a Dragon Knight, a Triglav into tower range. It doesn't care about the minion it's currently on anymore. It doesn't care about the siege camp there. It is 100% focused on you. And from all the testing that I can do, granted, the Punisher leaps over walls. The bosses often get out in front of the minion wave. It seems that all objectives and bosses are now being targeted first by all towers. So much like you're a hero, it's targeting you. Oh no, here comes the minion waves. It goes, minion, let me feed on this instead of you, hero. That'll now happen when any of these other objective targets show up.
Yeah, it's I honestly I like it. It causes you to think more about your positioning if you're piloting one of these vehicles.
Right, there's the sweet spot that we haven't mentioned in a long time. It's basic strategy for a lot of us who have played this game for forever. Hug the wall, not the middle gate. There's tower, gate, tower, and there's a wall on each side. You walk in on your Dragon Knight, your Triglav, and hug that wall so you're only being targeted by one tower at a time. You will be burned down very quickly if you just go ham straight into that gate.
Yeah, especially if the enemy team is there to defend.
Yes,
all the poke melt, on top of it. Just absolutely melt, which is good. I wanted a little more counterplay for getting the objective, other than just playing the crap out of the Thrall build that you recommended last week. I'm having so much fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It is so much fun. I'm just chain lightning constantly.
Yeah,
always.
No, it's a good time. This week I have moved myself from Grace of Air at 13, getting those extra stacks. I talked about this as kind of a stepping stone. Now I've moved on to that Frostwolf Grace where you get that instant heal. I'm still forgetting I have an extra button, but man, Thrall, in a great place right now.
Well, if you're playing Anduin right now, you should be used to hitting your D button, so maybe that'll help.
Yeah, I need to hit more Ds.
Yeah. There are a lot of other minor changes. Well, not minor, but a lot of other changes in regards to the scaling damage on the Triglav that we're not going to mention here because it's just listing off numbers. But essentially, the scaling damage for the basic attacks have been reduced based on game time. There's also some health scale changes and a lot of damage tweaks to individual attacks. So if you're interested in those, go study up. But we're not going to
basically because you're building increase in damage. You're going to be feeling good against buildings. Team fight will be pretty bad. Late game, use the Triglav like you used to.
We already talked about BlizzCon being announced, but we should mention when tickets are going on sale because they're going on sale this Saturday.
Yes.
2 waves. 2 waves. So this Saturday, I believe it's 10 a.m. Pacific. Bad podcast host. I forgot to put the times in, but I'm pretty sure it's 10 a.m. Pacific. And then the second wave is on May 8th, and that's in the evening. And they're using AXS this year, which puts you into a waiting room and then just dishes out tickets at random. So it's truly random. And I've seen some people going back and forth on this, and I said this on Angry Chicken, and I will say it again here. This seems fine to me. It was basically random before, based on just how fast you pinged the whatever service they went with. And so this doesn't bother me, really.
Right. So before you would enter a line based on how quick you could click or how fast your connection was. Now you're in that room and then randomly selected. It's messy. The whole thing's messy. Tickets for concerts are messy. It's just the way it's got to be because of the demand.
Yeah. So tickets on Saturday. Best of luck, everybody. And then again, tickets on May 8th. By the way, I mentioned AXS. Really, the only tip I can give you at this point, other than being on as soon as you can, and you can get into queue, I believe, 30 minutes early.
That's what I heard.
But again, because of the randomness, the way I understand it, it doesn't. As long as you're on at some point in that 30-minute window, you will be put in the room.
Right.
So you don't need to like me. I would be there right as soon as I could get in the room just to be safe. But the one tip I can give you is create your account now. If you don't already have an AXS account, create it. Be logged into it. Be ready to go. Because it's not stuff you want to mess around with on when the ticket sales go live.
Right. Saving an account would be a horrible thing to have go wrong while the server might be under a bit of a load.
Yep. Yep. Prices have gone up for tickets, by the way. $29 for the regular pass, up from last year. And then there's a new portal pass. I'm calling it the fast pass. That gives you all kinds of perks for a significant increase in price. But my gut reaction was like, man, this is a bad look, especially in a rough year for Blizzard's public image. But I have heard from so many people that are jazzed about this. They've really kind of turned me around, because it does. At the end of the day, I was like, oh, this feels bad, but it doesn't affect me. They're not forcing me to buy this pass. And I've heard from a lot of people who are like, yeah, I want this. I don't, for whatever reason. And it's true. Like, this is your hobby, man. Like, we all spend a lot of money on our hobbies, whatever it might be. And, if you can afford to get that extra pass and you're stoked on it, cool. I'm glad that they're offering it, I guess.
Right. If money's no object in this particular instance, but also if you want a place to sit because they have a hangout room for you, if you want to skip some lines, if you want to go to the Dark Moon Fair a night early because you were a massive Pin Trader fan, those are all really good perks. And in fact, they've even mentioned they're going to be doing some sort of Thursday night celebration business. So
yeah, that's honestly my only concern, really, is because I
for us, right?
I really I enjoy the unofficial Blizzard events that happened the night before, and I'm like, oh no, they're encroaching on Thursday night. I'm already exhausted at the end of. I have always wanted more BlizzCon, by the way, always. I think BlizzCon should be 3 days, but not like this. Not like this. Just a whole nother con day. Spread the eSports out a little bit more. Just give us a little more room to breathe. Maybe don't have so many overlapping panels. Although with the issue of seating last year, overlapping panels probably, if they didn't overlap, would even make the seating issues even worse.
Right. That's honestly my biggest concern because I love the meetups. I love the A-Move hangouts. I love the podcastery we get up to, and so more to come from us in months to come. It's always insane to me we're even planning BlizzCon in our own heads as consumers this far in advance. So we'll let you know what the official A-Move plans are way down the road.
Yeah. So, anyways, we have a strategy this week. We're going to talk about the Battleground rotation update. Before we do that, we want to thank people that are supporting us with their actual money over at patreon.com/ITN. If you're over there, you're supporting us. Thank you so very much. And I'm going to be honest, Kyle. I was a little scared. There's a little bit of an exodus with some of the less than awesome Heroes news in the beginning of this year, and we've gotten a lot of new patrons. We've had a lot of current patrons up their pledges, and we just want to thank you so very much for supporting us. And as we mentioned in the past, we got some new goals over there. If you want to hear Kyle and I talk about non-hero stuff and unlock extra podcasts, there are goals for that. So go check it out. Patreon.com/ITN. And to some of our newer patrons, thank you to Jeremy A., Ryan, no last name given, and John G. Not John J, because then I would just assume it's John Jagger. It's John G.
Now, thank you, everybody, for the support, for helping us expand this little network business we got going on. Garrett and I love doing shows together, and we want to do more shows for you. But we also want to make sure we continue this fabulous show into the Nexus.
Indeed. Let's go check it out. Thank you for the support, everybody. And now let's talk about this Battleground rotation.
Choose a talent.
Choose a talent.
Talent? That seems generous.
Yeah, no clue what that means.
So, the other thing we didn't talk about is the fact that the Battleground rotation has changed. The ranked Battleground pool has been updated, and they added Garden of Terror, they added Hanamura, and they took out Braxis and Volskaya. And Volskaya I find odd after all of the Triglav updates.
They probably want to test it.
Oh, that's a good point. How did I not think about it that way?
Yeah. I think it is such a solid map. It's one that people respond to the objective really well. We have the timing out. It almost has become a bit of just a cursed hollow comfort space because it's one big team fight, control the point, nothing too over OP, no real weird heroes people try to do on it. Merc camps aren't at the forefront, but they just want to see what those updates can be. As for Braxis holdout, I think with adding Hanamura, they were planning to take out one of the 2-lane maps, and they decided that Braxis holdout was the one they were going to target.
Yeah, how do you feel about this, man? Some people have been having really strong reactions to Hanamura. I am in what I think is the unpopular opinion camp of I like Hanamura now.
I just feel like let it happen. Honestly, I'd like to see Cursed Hollow go, but that's a personal win rate problem right now.
I would like to jump through the internet at you right now.
Hey man, 11% ain't lying. Yeah.
What is happening?
Dude, I don't know. That is where I am lost. It was bad luck, perhaps, but that statistic, it warrants some investigation.
Here's what you're gonna do, Kyle. You're gonna learn Rexar, and you're just gonna play him on the map.
Just Rexar.
Just mercs will always be taken, and you just bring a lot to the fight.
It is a merc heavy map,
Yeah.
and I feel like Artanis is excusing himself from other duties he should be doing by doing so. And maybe Rexar would be more pure in that merc campery.
Yeah. Also, I found this. I don't know if this will happen in your league, but where I'm playing, Rexar is like this call to action. Like a lot of people that I feel like normally would not stop and help me with mercs and get it done faster. They're just like, oh yeah, why not? They just stop in, they throw a couple things down, and then it's done, and we're all off to the objective together. So I don't know. I think it's the bear. Everyone likes the bear, Kyle.
Maybe it's a mascot.
Yeah, but let's talk about Hanamura. Let's talk about Garden Terror because we haven't had to deal with these maps in our draft rotation in quite a while, but they are here now. Garden of Terror. Let's start there.
All right. So Garden of Terror, since you last knew it in the ranked rotation, has changed quite a bit. You've probably played it in quick match, so we won't go into how the layouts change, how mercenaries have changed. But it is now a 3-gather objective. You need to, much like your Alterac Pass, get in there, defeat the Guardians, in this case, the Shamblers, the little seedling plants that are gathered around the objective, and once they are gone, you can then channel. But that's not entirely true. All they need to do is be distracted. So if you have a repositioning tool like Johanna and can pull them all onto, or if everybody else is just patient, one person can run in, gather them all up with no CCs or any sort of thing, just basically get aggro without distracting them. Someone can walk right on up and start channeling immediately. You will find many situations, coordinated play, where the enemy team will go, oh, we have time. Let's finish off that camp. Let's clear out this lane. They have to deal with the Shamblers. It'll take a little while. And they do. They have decent health. But tanks or anybody else with the health to just take a couple hits, get in there, group them up, and let that Malfurion do the channel.
Now, with this not being as great of a map with for mages and backliners, do you think the change in the way that the objective plays out had something to do with that? Because I feel like back in the day, Kael'thas was such a beast here when we had to actually fight the larger boss, because everyone would tuck. So often, folks would tuck themselves in the curvature of where the boss pit was, and I mean like monster boss. And so just flame strikes would just do work. And something about the new one, like it's still a small area, right, that we're fighting around, but there's just more directions to move.
Well, one thing about Kael'thas, and same thing goes for Tychus, Burned Flesh used to be the #1 talent for Kael'thas, and that would do 8% giant killer damage anytime you hit 2 targets. And the vehicle counted as a heroic target. So taking Leoric, Tychus, Kael'thas, any of these giant killers, Vala, late game, Raynor, they would just obliterate bosses. It was drafting to lose a little bit, but they had a higher win rate simply because eventually someone was going to collect enough seeds to, summon the full-blown boss. It was inevitable here because both teams sort of got their pools, kind of like Spider Queen. It's just going to happen unless you're just losing off.
No, you said inevitable. I was going to say like Thanos.
Yeah, exactly. Well, never mind. So the real thing about that is that you do not have the catch-up mechanic, but in your solo play or your uncoordinated play, mages, Alexstrasza, Malfurion, Gul'dan, Kael'thas, Whitemane can be really weak here because of all the openness. And it's a lot like Cursed Hollow in that way. When you are defending or you're trying to push into the objective area, there's just a lot of angles for that Sonya to come around in the back line and mess everybody up. Whereas Braxis, you back up, tower, right there for you, helping you out. There, you don't have that protection here. So if you are going to take a squishy, maybe you might want to favor something more Hanzo or Vala that can reposition, at least in some way aggressively. And to that note, win rate wise, Falstad and Phoenix both are looking really good here for the opening of ranked new Garden of Terror.
I mean, they're flankers, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many cool jungle fights in this map. Much the same, honestly, kind of similar to Cursed Hollow. How are you doing on Garden of Terror, Mr. Cursed Hollow is your Achilles heel?
Well, I don't have any rank statistics to it, so I'm fine in quick match. We'll see how that goes. I'm very curious if those two things match up. My Alterac is really solid. So I think in that one, we all escape in one big line backwards. So my real problem is just this Kael'thas play where I get flanked by a Sonya and I'm dead.
That makes sense. So I would be honest, I'm curious to see if you start working on your Cursed Hollow and that starts moving upwards in your win rate, if Garden of Terror follows, because I think of the two and the way team fights play out very similarly. And also just my Merc brain. I mean, these are both very Merc heavy maps.
They are, and you will be completely overwhelmed and locked out of the map if you do not manage these mercenary camps. The really big deal is that the what feels like it should be your side siege camps, the isolated one, is so easy to get because of these very open areas around where the previous monster used to be. If you're Murky, Brightwing, Falstad, let's say you're on Cursed Hollow and you've got 2 stacks of bribe and you really want to go take those back giant camps. Good luck, because there's a sight tower there. There's danger in the hills. But here on Garden of Terror, you can weave pretty freely through here and get yourself out scot-free.
Awesome. So Hanamura.
So this is your Braxis-like map. Think of it as Braxis, but with weaker objectives and stronger XP camps. You're still probably going to do your 1-4 split here. However, you can move to a 1-1-3, mainly in the bottom lane, and then have someone permanently doing mercenary camps. Because the XP they supply, it's not about what you summon out of them. You get a little sight. Certainly the samurai.
I was about to say, the big guy. The big guy is still worth it.
Right. He's a boss, basically. He's not going to do the stun. He's not as destructive, but you need to have that boss level of character picked out for him. It needs to be that Rexar, that Twin Blades Varian. Illidan suffers a little against this. It's just really hard to maintain health and do this thing solo.
Yeah, it hits like a truck, and yeah, it's. I'm so glad you mentioned the high amount of XP for mercenaries, because I had honestly forgotten. I had forgotten that was a strategy on Hanamura, even though I've been playing it in quick match, but it hasn't been in the back of my mind for so long. But these mercenaries give a lot of experience.
There's also no monsters being summoned by that payload. It is a completely out of lane fight for the most part. So things like Li Ming, we might expect. Ana, Nubarak, where his beetles get to one wild and not wander off and attack random minions. Diablo is way the heck down on this map. The walls are far apart. And when you're making that final push across the lane, there is nothing for Diablo to connect on. 37% win rate on Hanamura.
That's one of his higher ones, isn't
it? Savage and false, but I'm with you. Luckily, he just gets banned. He's in the first bans. We shouldn't be doing it, but it happens. And I know people think this is a crusade and we're insane. Just let it happen.
I've come full circle. I like the bans again because it keeps Diablos off my team.
Exactly. If you lose an objective, push. So and again, we didn't really ever get to see this in eSports. So from what we've gathered as a community and across all our various games, you turn this thing in, it works a little Blackheart's Bay, and it's going to fire and take out the 2 towers, the wall, the well, and get a shot into the fort, depending on how much damage you did to that wall ahead of time. If you know you're going to lose this, stop fighting for it and go do the exact same thing to another lane. It's being turned into the top. It's going to fire on the bottom lane, fire across the whole map, and take out the 2 towers, the wall, the well, and do a little bit of fort damage. You should be doing the exact same thing in that bottom lane. If it's being turned in the bottom, your whole team should be top, pushing there. Just trying to break even and make sure you don't get behind, because there are catapults on this map.
Yeah, especially if you had, like, for... I'm assuming it's rare, but there's probably some players out there who play exclusively ranked draft and haven't seen Hanamura since its rework.
Sure.
And you might be forgetting that, you know, you can just play a normal game on this map now.
There's no more, by the way, there's no more turrets on top of the payload. The payload doesn't have any room on top of it for anything anymore, which is a little sad because it was a nice Overwatch sort of fantasy thing as someone who enjoyed Torbjorn on that game's release.
I loved the building a killdozer, but yeah, not one Torbjorn in the game. Thanks, man. Thanks.
As for what we can expect through this exchange, because it is taking a 3-lane objective map, in this case, it was Garden of Terror, replacing our Volskaya Foundry, our Braxis being replaced by Hanamura. We can't expect any real heavy shifts in heroes. Gazlo might struggle a little bit, but he's also got a really good win rate on, Garden of Terror. Rexar, someone who has a really, really good win rate on something like Braxis, actually has an even higher win rate on Garden of Terror and has the 2-character Hanamura advantage, possibly. And don't forget about that. You can add up to 3 characters to the area on the Hanamura cart, making it go faster. So bring a Rexar to the business. You supply 2 with 1. Probably don't do a Lost Vikings. Probably, particularly when I'm saying Li Ming might be running wild here.
I would say that bonus is in most cases more or less negligible, but yeah. it is cute for sure. In those like small cases where you're the Rexar being like, oh, my team has this covered, I'm just gonna go sneak the payload. Like, it's super cool because you move a little quicker. But really, Rexar for me is like I'm on Hanamura is a little rough because I want to go solo lane, but trying to get people to come up and cover my lane while I'm early murking is a fool's errand.
If you're hanging out at home right now, you got a pen and paper ready, this is the way to think about it. Go ahead and write down these 4 different types of maps and think about what you're going to pick for them. And this is where I'm going to be going too, because very first up is 3-lane collect things maps. These are Cursed Hollow and Garden of Terror. What are you going to do with really wide, really multi-angled flank collection maps? What have you got there? 3-lane channel objectives: Alterac Pass, Infernal Shrines, Tomb of the Spider Queen, Towers of Doom. Now, of course, Infernal Shrines, you hang out there collecting all the little minions and whatnot, but you're controlling an area and you're sort of turning things in. What do you get?
It's similar. It's similar to what you're doing in these other battlegrounds. I completely agree with you.
Right. You basically need to survive long enough to actually complete the objective. How are you going to hold the point? Sky Temple, Dragonshire. Yeah, stand on something. What do you got for that? And then your 2-lane maps right now are Battlefield of Eternity and Hanamura Temple, which frankly are really unique from each other. But you can really start thinking about how few 2-lane maps you have, and if you're a one-trick pony, where you might need to readjust some of your roster business.
Yeah. How have you always, historically, Battlefield, and still is, Battlefield of Eternity has always been just such a wild card in terms of how we play this game, which seems odd now looking back on it, because remember how groundbreaking we thought Towers of Doom was at the time. Like, we can't attack the core. What is this madness? What are you talking about? When in reality, a lot of the, like you said here, you filed Towers of Doom in with Spider Queen and with Infernal Shrines and with Alterac Pass, because it's all of this about these channeling objectives. And you're right, a lot of the lessons learned on those other 3 battlegrounds can be applied to Towers of Doom. But Battlefield has always been this thing where it's just like, oh, I've got my Battlefield pick. Like, for most of my life playing Heroes of the Storm, this is the only battleground I was ever interested in playing Vala on. Not so much the case anymore, but for a very long time that was the case. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Never really asked you about it.
I think the toughest thing about Battlefield of Eternity right now, and the most frustrating thing for players who have watched this game, post HGC and paid attention to HGC before its change, we don't really know what the DPS meters are like for a lot of heroes. And I'm hearing from a lot of people that they're seeing Valas, and everyone's always stoked on them, but they end up auto attack build on Battlefield of Eternity, and it breaks their hearts. We don't know where Greymane is, really. There's this building stigma that Artanis is a lose more pick here, because as the secondary front line, he's the last one you want farting off to go solo and immortal while everyone else deals with the team fight. He should be there in the team fight. Sparing Vala, who's squishy and likely to get ganked, but has an escape, is a better option. Using Li Ming even has a bit of control, can jump over a wall. Whereas Artanis might be investing to lose, but we love him there. So I'm curious to see what the future of Battlefield of Eternity looks like. I think it's going to start looking more like Jaina as we go on. Jaina, who has a build for it, but is just really solid, and you're not losing that specialty pick. There's another great comparison here is Stukov. Stukov's meat arm is fantastic for burning an immortal, but he's with the 4-man defense often. And why would he and the guy who's taking no damage be hanging out together?
That's true. That's a very good point. That's kind of the push and pull of Battlefield, and it has evolved, I think, interestingly in that way. That we just get further and further away from specialized picks on Battlefield, but it's still a thing in the back of your head.
I'll tell you one thing that could very quickly happen here. Sergeant Hammer has an incredible win rate on Garden Terror. 72%.
That's
now
really high.
Yeah, it's an isolated statistic for sure. But if Sergeant Hammer, empowered by Garden of Terror, takes off, lowest win rate being Sky Temple at 46%, she could easily become one of the top picks for Battlefield of Eternity. And we could enter some sort of wild and crazy, based on win rate, Sergeant Hammer meta.
That would be weird.
Those are the weird things that are going to happen with this. If someone is weird. Just a boss on Hanamura, people are going to look at the win rate, not the map win rate, and say, oh, Genji's amazing in all situations. Genji nonstop.
Yeah, but how long does that stay if they're not succeeding in other battlegrounds? Because then that equalizes the win rate.
Diablo fell another 0.8 this week. Some things just can't be stopped.
Okay, well, something like Hammer concerns me if it works. Like if Hammer grabs on to other battlegrounds, like just takes over in the meta and performs on other battlegrounds. Hammer, that's the type of thing that concerns me because Hammer is so specific, such a specific hero. There's no other hero in this game that does what Hammer can do. So either ban Hammer or you don't get to have bring the same type of utility to the map, to that game. You don't have another choice if you don't get the Hammer, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I just look at that like, ooh, I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to, because Hammer on other battlegrounds doesn't seem as scary.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, you've also got other extremes like Sylvanas, who has a horrible win rate on Garden of Terror. On paper, that makes no sense. 3 distant lanes all being pushed by some ravenous beast, and she gets to turn off the towers that are now focusing those monsters. That sounds like a great deal, but it's one of her lowest win rate maps. She's actually better in Cursed Hollow, where you're having more isolated fights, and her trait doesn't even come into play. One thing to note, again, a little scary on that Hammer department, Anduin's win rate right now, overall, according to Hotslogs in the games we have, is 44%. Anduin's win rate alongside Hammer is 56%.
Well, it shores up a huge weakness in Hammer, right?
Reposition her, make her invincible, perhaps, or protected at the very least. Healing, it's a great spam target too, and people are going to be focusing that more than you. It's got a pushback to keep people off you. You got a root on your kit. Like that sounds like That sounds like something we should do tonight, frankly. I think we should do an Anduin Hammer match.
I'd be down. I would be very down for that. So, yeah. So really what you're getting at here, Kyle, besides just the battleground shift, is that the meta is still changing. It's still adjusting. Even though you and I are sitting here and we can't seem to pull out of the nosedive of, why are you still interested in Diablo? The meta is still shifting week after week. It's great. If you're the type of person that likes to continuously learn and try and figure out why things are shifting the way that they are and how to adapt your own play to that, which you are definitely that person, Kyle, and I can be, depending.
I prefer this as a natural evolution, greater than an expansion sort of system where they just say, out with the old, in with the new, and we get to evolve with it. And in particular, I now, like with Thrall on my roster and the role selection screen, I feel so much more empowered to pick a wide variety of characters than I've ever felt in the past. And with the slower hero releases, I am becoming more curious about humanoids. You know, it's just a stigma of mine. I'd rather play a monster for fantasy and fun. Well, now I want to shore up all these, holes in my roster, and I'm not going to sit around for them to add Yogg Saron because I don't want to play Medivh. By the way, Medivh, a little weird. He's sitting there. I know a lot of casual players that are really pissed off about Medivh being in the game. Of all the characters that feel like they need to rework post HGC, he's just kind of this pro business, what the heck were we thinking thing.
I still see him when I end up on a team. And it's still terrifying.
Yeah, he's busy.
Yeah, it's that, and got the roughest Abathur quick match game today. We were just owning team fights, and it was just like, that's cool. Your keeps are gone. Just like
I had the same thing with Murky this week. I fought 3 Murkies. They dominated every camp. I fought Lost Vikings too. We got out camped. If there is going to be a change based on Hanamura and Garden Terror, just base map level, both those are really Merc intensive maps, and we could see anyone who bribes, but anyone who's decent at a camp, just really excel.
I'm looking at this thinking, good day to be me, I guess.
Yeah, good day. Rexar's going to stay on top of this. He's even gone up over the last week. The nerfs or the town incentivizations didn't really affect him too much. He's got a great place. Yeah,
I've always liked Merking. Zagara's doing okay. Despite all of my desires for her to get an overhaul because she feels kind of old and moldy to me, she's doing just fine. And I don't know. Maybe I was more down on her than I thought in recent episodes, but a lot of people have been writing in, being like, Garrett, I'm just owning on Zagara. It's so good. I don't know. I feel like you're all about to. You're a day away from starting a Garrett needs to love Zagara again petition. So
I think it's perfectly fair. Zagara hasn't changed a lot, and you're currently in love with something else, for the moment. But she just needs a little sprucing up. And she's got a little bit about it. The Anduin now has the same problem. 4 is just boring on Anduin. And 4 on Zagara is also just kind of boring. And Anduin's 13s are Snoresville, 15% movement speed. Oh, geez, what am I going to pick? They all do the same thing eventually. And Zagara, spell, shield, protective coating, Hydralisk Confusion. I'm thinking about which one's best in the situation, but they're all just kind of lame.
Yeah.
But it's all you got. When talents are what you got in this game.
But that's also I feel like that's us reaching for a critique, right?
Sure.
Because my God, what a week for Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah.
Anduin releasing, I really like him. And this Battleground update is a huge shift to the way we draft in this game, at least in the in Storm League, and all of the changes to the prioritization of vehicles by structures and everything that happened with the Triglav and the Dragon Knight, and this is huge, man. The summer is here, and I'm ready to play some Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's a really healthy adjustment that we didn't expect. and hints at the new, what can be, 3 months. Man, that's pretty damn good. We figured out a lot over 3 months. What's next? What hero comes in 3 months? What map update? Can other things look like Dragonshire looks like right now? I mean, it's a brand new. I'm trying to avoid the word, but I'm trying the speed.
Tempo. It's a brand new tempo.
We're
marching to the beat of a new drum.
All sorts of video game websites and even video game developers are using that cadence word now, and it's really weird.
Oh yeah, we just saw Respawn fired it off 3 times in their update blog for
post.
Apex Legends.
They made it popular. Stop.
It's a good word.
It is a fine word. It sounds smart. It's a smart sounding word.
I'm just shell shook by it a little bit.
Yeah.
But doesn't matter. This is, I think, a really solid update. Let us know what you think. Write in itncast@gmail.com. If you're supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN, you can hook your Discord up to it, and then you automatically get added to the Into the Nexus Patreon Discord. You can drop questions in there. We knew we weren't going to have time for emails this week, so we are at the end of the show. But write in. We burnt a lot of questions on last week's episode, so fill up that inbox. Drop us some questions in the Discord, and we'll be getting back to Q&A sessions with next week's episode, unless there's some other bizarre out of nowhere giant update to Heroes of the Storm. So anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this. If you're a patron and you're watching us live on Twitch right now, hello chat. Horror film, yes, we do read chat during. It's just that we don't usually drop our train of thought in the middle of a topic to answer an off-topic question.
As fun as they may be.
As fun as they may be, yes. I'll tell you what we use chat a lot for is when we can't remember the names of things.
Yeah.
Or when there's breaking news. A lot of you become our real-time reporters, and we're very thankful. But if you're watching live, our patron bonanza is tonight. I don't remember the time anymore, Kyle. Are we doing it at 8 or 9 Eastern?
5 p.m. Pacific is what I know.
That would be 8 p.m. Eastern. So hour and 20 minutes from now, if you're watching live, come on back, watch us play games with the fine folks supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. We do these once a month. There will technically be 2 of them this month because we just couldn't fit it into the previous month because of travel. And there's a lot of Thursdays this month.
Yeah, 5 Thursdays. So we can use 2 of them.
Yes, yes, exactly. So expect one tonight and one at the very end of this month. And you can sign up for those by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/ITN. Also, it's a big thanks to our producers, Declan H. and Cheesy Bob. We really appreciate it. We're typically live Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/AMoveTV if you want to come join us live. And you can follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast. But before we go, Kyle, where can everybody find you?
You can find me over at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson playing Heroes of the Storm Monday evenings, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Tuesday and Wednesday are the ranked days over there for Solo Queue Storm League. Solo only. Yes, it can be done. Yes, it's good times.
I am Garrett Art on Twitter. All of the podcasts, including this one, can be found at amove.tv. I recommend going over there and checking it out. We've got the Angry Chicken for Hearthstone. We have Entered the Apex with Kyle and I. We have another game show we do together. It's all about Apex Legends. Let's Talk About Star Wars has relaunched as a weekly podcast. There are 3 new episodes of Let's Talk About Star Wars from the previous month and a new one going up this weekend. So go. Check it out. That's with Tom Merritt and Jenny Jefferson and myself talking about Star Wars. Plenty of other shows. We're spoiling Game of Thrones on R2-T2 or Embrace of Spoilers, depending on what feed you're on. There's just so many damn podcasts right now. Go check them all out. amove.tv. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.